Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're taking just one single profound narrative,
Right. A piece called The Silent Weight of Strength.
and we're going to perform a deep analysis on its central character. You know the one. He's the friend who never asked for help.
And this isn't just a story about one person being stubborn. It's really a critical look at how we define resilience. Or maybe how we misdefine it.
Yeah, exactly. We're diving into the hidden cost of being that constant anchor, the person everyone leans on.
And we're really here to challenge that powerful cultural myth that dependable people are, well, that they're automatically self-sufficient.
So our mission today is to pull out the four big actionable lessons this story offers. And these are vital for you, the learner, whether you see yourself as the person carrying the burden or, the friend who's standing nearby.
We want to understand what happens when that quiet strength stops being a virtue and becomes a dangerous kind of isolation.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So we have to start where the source material does, right? By setting up this protagonist. He's this idealized figure. The text paints him as calm, dependable, always strong for others.
He's the first call in a crisis. The steady hand.
The steady hand when everyone else is panicking, yeah.
So he's the pillar of his community, and the narrative's really clear that he earned that reputation. He always delivered. But that right there, that sets up this profound psychological dynamic. What happens when we become so reliable that people just assume our capacity is infinite? We put the heaviest load on the strongest looking support beams.
It creates what some sociologists might call role entrapment.
Moral entrapment.
Yeah. The expectation becomes so ingrained, both from the outside, from his friends, and from the inside, from the man himself, that the only acceptable way to act is with this unwavering strength.
So his tragic flaw wasn't his competence.
Not at all. It was the establishment of an internal rule book.
And what was that rule book? What did it say?
That strength meant silence. And once you adopt that rule,
Yeah.
it strictly prohibits any kind of self-care, any vulnerability. You're locked into a state of perpetual giving.
So you have to deflect? You have to minimize your own needs?
You have to hide them, because just to acknowledge them would violate the very identity that everyone, including you, admires and relies on.
That is a really vital distinction. He didn't just forget to ask for help. His whole idea of strength was built on the refusal to ask. But hang on, here's where I see a bit of friction in the sources.
Okay.
Aren't things like stoicism and silent endurance seen as virtues? Are we saying those ideals are just fundamentally flawed?
That's a fair question, and it's a necessary counterargument. Look, Stoicism at its best is about managing your internal reactions to external events. But this character, he went beyond managing his reactions.
He started suppressing the struggle itself.
Exactly. He wasn't practicing self-control anymore. He was putting on a performance of invulnerability.
So that calm, admired exterior, it became a shield.
A defensive mechanism, yeah. It actively blocked the kind of real connection that requires, two people to be honest about their limits.
Wow.
And that performance of constant competence
Yeah.
it's exhausting, which is why the text then moves into the inevitable result of all that silence.
Right. The source material says, slowly, unseen cracks formed beneath his calm exterior.
And that word slowly is key. This isn't a sudden break. It's a slow, sustained erosion.
And that erosion phase, I think that's where the most valuable insights for you, the learner, really are. Because it forces us to challenge our entire idea of what true strength even is.
And how we apply that. Because if silence is the rule, then what's the consequence of keeping up that facade? It leads us directly to the first big reframe the story demands.
The first critical lesson from this character's silent weight is simply this. Asking for help is not weakness.
We really need to pull that apart because culturally, we often connect independence with superiority. We see needing help as, a failure of character.
That you weren't prepared enough.
Right. But if you look at this through a professional lens, asking for help is often the strongest, most strategic move you can possibly make.
Totally. Think about a workplace scenario. You're running a huge project, and you just refuse to delegate or raise a red flag when you hit a problem. You might think you're being strong, I can handle this alone, but if the whole project fails because you didn't communicate, your independence didn't save anything. It actively sabotaged it.
The ability to accurately assess your own limits, your resources, and then communicate a shortfall. That is the definition of maturity, of effective management. It's not weakness.
The person who asks for help early is doing preventative maintenance.
And the person who waits until it all falls apart is just dealing with crisis management. It's a world of difference.
And that leads right into the source material's third big realization, which is directly linked to the first one. Strength includes vulnerability.
Yes. If we can just reframe vulnerability, it stops being about surrender. It becomes instead an accurate self-assessment. To be able to say, I'm carrying too much right now, isn't breaking down.
It's acknowledging the stress test.
Exactly. It's requesting reinforcement to make sure the structure actually holds.
It's the difference between something brittle that just snaps under pressure
Yeah.
and something flexible that can bend, absorb the shock, and
Yeah.
then, return to its shape. That flexibility, that's the vulnerability that ensures you last long term.
The application for you here is crystal clear. If you are constantly running at 100%, always trying to be that friend who never asks for help, you are accumulating hidden damage.
You're creating those unseen cracks.
You are. True strength requires scheduling time for restoration. And that restoration often needs outside support, even if it's just talking through the stress out loud with someone.
Which brings us to the inevitable breaking point in the story. That slow erosion can only go on for so long.
Before the structure just fails.
And the text moves to that moment when the character finally collapsed.
This is where the illusion shatters. And the story is very careful here to pivot. It pivots from his individual suffering to the community's reaction.
His friends were shocked by how long they had failed to notice.
That's it. It's this collective realization that they were also, in a way, complicit. They accepted the performance.
That failure to notice, that is the core of Lesson 2. Silence can hide suffering. The community just accepted silence as proof of well-being.
They saw the calm exterior, and they took it face value. They forgot that some people are just. They're better at disguising pain than others.
It's such a tragic irony.
It is. The very traits that made him so admirable, that calm demeanor, that competence, were the exact tools he used to build an impenetrable wall around his pain.
They saw his calm and assumed his tank was full.
Not realizing it was actually a highly disciplined, slow drain.
When you look at someone who's always capable, it's so easy to assume their internal resources are limitless. We stop checking in. We assume they're fine.
But the giver, the anchor, they need refueling too, often more than anyone else because they're constantly giving out that energy.
Which leads to the story's critical turning point.
Right.
The big realization that dawns on everyone way too late.
They realize too late that silence is not always strength. In his case, silence wasn't stoicism. It was a desperate disguise, a failure of communication, both inward and outward.
This shifts the responsibility entirely, doesn't it?
It has to.
If we know that the person who needs help the most is the one least conditioned to ask for it, then just waiting for them to send an SOS is, well, it's a dangerous strategy.
We can't wait for the collapse.
So this raises a big question. How do we adjust our perspective, our friendships, even our professional lives to proactively care?
If we know that strong person's internal rulebook forbids them from asking, then the responsibility has to shift to us, to the observers.
Which brings us perfectly to the final, and I think the most actionable insight from the source material. It moves the focus completely to our collective duty of care.
Lesson 4. Care begins with noticing what is unsaid. This is the path forward. It requires active, observational friendship.
Not just passive.
Not at all. We have to move beyond that surface level check-in, asking, how are you? And just accepting fine as the full answer.
Yeah.
We have to train ourselves to look for those subtle, unseen cracks.
Can you give us some tangible examples for the learner listening? How do you actually notice what is unsaid in a friend or colleague who seems to have it all together?
Okay, sure. Look for inconsistency in their routine, not for an explicit complaint. Is the friend who is always meticulously organized suddenly late all the time or cutting corners?
Okay.
Or is the person who usually shares personal stories now speaking only in facts and tasks,
Mm-hmm.
using a lot of professional jargon, avoiding personal pronouns?
Those are such critical behavioral cues. It's not about looking for tears. It's about looking for a shift in their pattern.
A subtle withdrawal, maybe?
Right?
A higher level of irritation? Or, and this is a tricky one, a suspiciously steady calm when everything around them is chaos.
They're broadcasting the overload.
They are. But we're conditioned to ignore those signals because, well, we reward the silence. We reward the appearance of strength.
So we have to stop rewarding silence as strength.
And start rewarding honesty as strength. The collapse of the friend in this story was, at its core, a failure of observational care. The community just. They passively accepted his definition of strength instead of actively engaging.
The huge insight here is that equating strength with silence is a dangerous miscalculation for everybody involved.
Exactly.
For everyone. So this deep dive, based on this one concise story, it really forces a profound shift in how we should live our own lives. We've learned that even the most dependable people, our pillars, can be carrying enormous silent burdens.
And that true support means seeing vulnerability not as a deficit, but as an honest request for human connection.
We have to internalize this knowledge. We have to let it change our behavior.
Because the knowledge is only valuable when it's applied. We have to commit to proactively observing, to engaging with those pillars in our lives, and recognizing that their strength requires restoration, and that sometimes the ones who need the help the most will never, ever ask for it out loud.
So what does this all mean? It means shifting